welcome back. I am John P. For this video, we're going to be talking about the top 8 watches for the year 2022. This past year, there have been so many great new watch releases and even updates to long-standing product lines for brands that I never thought the brands would update. So this past year, I've really enjoyed in watches, including different watches that I've added to my collection, including the Patek Philippe 5110 World Time, which happens to be on my wrist in a red strap for Christmas time. Now, let me say that these watches I'm going to mention, I didn't just take a spreadsheet and sort by which watches had the best specs. I think many of us would agree that watch would be a lot of Grand Seiko, Rolex, Patek Philippe, and very predictable things that just happen to push the limits of certain parts of watchmaking and what people were looking for out in the marketplace. But instead, I'm going to be mentioning these 8 watches and the specific reason why I think the watch deserves to receive some accolades or commendations for something interesting that it did. But before we do that, guys, please do not forget to check out delraywatch.com, where we've nearly doubled our inventory recently. A lot of it has made it to the site. And also, I do want to thank you all there out in the world for supporting us at Del Rey Watch and being with us there through this whole journey the last 5-6 years or so. It's been a lot of fun, and we're certainly working around the clock to make sure that all of your orders do go out before Christmas or the other holidays. So I do want to thank you there as well. So the first watch, I think, is certainly one of the most pressing contenders for the best watch of the year 2022 is going to be the Tudor Pelagos 39. Yes, this is a watch that everyone wanted in the dive watch community. No one expected, but we all received. This watch fits perfectly on so many wrists. It's a nice enmeshment of luxury watch, but utility watch, and that is so difficult for brands to pull off. I have yet to see really any criticisms of the watch besides maybe, oh, they could have improved the grade of titanium. But at the end of the day, they had so many different features that they needed to wrap in, and I think at $4,400 US, plus in-house movement, upgraded clasp, and just an amazing aesthetic to this watch, I think this one is a no-brainer for someone looking for an all-around kind of watch that ticks off all of those boxes. Leave that in the comments below what you think about this watch. I know there's a lot of Pelagos 39 lovers out there. Now, the next watch, I love this. I own the previous version of this. This is the Girard Perrgaux, the GP Laureato 38. The reason I think that this new release of this watch is phenomenal is they discontinued it for over a year. Many people complained that the larger size was just too big. GP took off, they had a management buyout, and they revitalized the brand, and they came back out with the 38 size, a size that for those that just don't want the AP, or they don't want to pay that premium, or the alternatives, which would be more in price that delivers a lot of the same value. They wanted this watch, but they couldn't get the smaller size. So I'm excited to see brands listen to collectors, because we're on here on the internet talking about these watches, and in the comments below, all a brand really has to do to want to know what the customers want to buy is look at the comment section. People are not shy about sharing their opinions on watches. That's the one fascinating thing about watches today on the internet is everyone shares their thoughts and opinions in the comments below. So I love to see it. I think this colorway is great, and I hope that more brands start building this kind of like quasi mid-size range watch collections that I think were ignored for a very long time. The next watch, and I think Cartier did a phenomenal job with this and really modernized a part of their catalog that wasn't really attracting younger buyers, I would say, buyers 40 and under, let's say, if we want to, speak in generalities. This is the new Cartier Santos, the Santos de Cartier with the PVD or the coated bezels that come on the rubber strap. They have the white dial with the blue accents. I think this is just a phenomenal watch. We had one in the door at Del Rey Watch. I thought the quality was way better than Cartier was ever putting in their kind of sportier lines. I remember I put this watch on my wrist and I didn't expect it to feel so comfortable from a brand that was really leaning heavily on their name, just their name for a long time to sell watches. Think of, some of the Ronde models and things were a little bit lackluster, but okay, it had that Cartier aesthetic. This watch really set a different tone for the brand, and I'm excited to see where the brand goes because they have the watchmaking capabilities. Richemont's a powerhouse. They can do so many things, and this shows that they are now at least seemingly willing to. So I'm very excited for Cartier in the future. Now, this next Patek Philippe watch, I actually had a bit of critiques on, right? This is going to be the Patek Philippe 5226G Calatrava, and at the time I thought, maybe the stylings of it looked very much like a Longines, right? It's got that kind of like military-esque dial to it in what would otherwise be pretty much a classic dress watch line, coming from a brand that is known for their classic dress watches. Now more so getting into that Nautilus, but before that, we're talking classic dress watches. Those looking for the classic dress watch grabbed for the Calatrava. This is different. It shows that Patek Philippe is maybe pushing the limits of the brand, expanding and trying to attract younger collectors, or they are willing to start offering younger variations of their watches. And I don't mean that in kind of like an age necessarily, but kind of a more or a less classic approach, a more modern approach to their design cues. Now, that could be maybe the watch collectors are demanding it, or maybe they're just going that direction as a brand or trying to open up to different types of collectors. That's for them to really know and decide. But I think it's just cool. Now that I think about it, I do still think it has a very modern design, and I go back and forth on this personally for myself, but I think it's interesting when an old world brand like this develops something that's a little young and edgy, puts interesting textures. It kind of shows, where are they going to be in 5 years? Kind of like some of the other examples I mentioned. I think that's just fascinating and pretty exciting, something to look forward to in the future for watch collecting. The next watch was such a controversial release. This is going to be the Omega collaboration with the Swatch, right? Omega and Swatch, owned by the same group, same holding company, the Omega MoonSwatch. Now, yes, some people that were diehard watch collectors said, hey, the specs aren't really there. They're tainting the Omega name. Okay, sure, you could look at it like that. Or you could look at it as, well, maybe they're raising up the Swatch name. Now, how I look at it right now is, it seems like a lot of brands are trying to have more entry-level offerings for the most part to try to get more people into watch collecting and try to be more inclusive in a certain way. Watches were kind of alienating to many people, especially many people that maybe didn't want to spend or perhaps didn't have the ability to spend on certain things like that. And I think this is a phenomenal way where anyone can really be part of that conversation. Whereas, if you want to buy a Speedmaster, we're not talking Patek Philippe prices, but you need to be hitting for a Speedmaster Professional $5,000 plus, maybe pre-owned a little bit less if it's an older one. And so, especially in certain parts of the world, that can be incredibly difficult to achieve. So I kind of like to see this. I think if we, remove ourselves from the perspective of, like a consumerist American viewpoint of where, hey, just save up. It's possible in certain parts of the world. You just cannot save up for a Speedmaster Professional. Many places in the world, that's just not going to happen. So I kind of like to see that. I think it's interesting. And I think this really sets the stage for future brands to do interesting things in the future. I also don't think the quality is horrible. I think it's on par, if not a little bit better, than most Swatch watches in existence. This next one is really coming from a cult classic brand. This is going to be Sinn. Now, this is the Sinn colorway dials of the 556. And why I like this, and I think this is such a great move from Sinn, is Sinn watches are kind of known for being that very like German, rigid, German design, simple, brutalist kind of aesthetic. Of course, you have some Bauhaus elements to certain German watch brands as well, and different influences depending on where they are in Switzerland, their relation to Germany, or if they're in Germany, for example, how close they are to Switzerland or parts of the other borders. You have different influences on the style. But something about Sinn is they generally had like very plain dials, very instrument dials, and this is a little bit different. I think it shows that they're kind of willing to offer watches that appeal to more people that just don't want to watch it. There's like, yes, this is a brutal, go out and, go hunting and fishing kind of a watch. This is a watch that is a little bit colorful, someone that maybe wants to style things up or, have more of like a metropolitan kind of a feel to it because, hey, they just don't do things outdoors. Maybe they live in a major city with no car. Maybe a tool watch doesn't really make sense for them. In which case, they have this offering now, which is a little bit more about style and a little less about the utility. And I think a brand should probably have that because you never know if you build a loyal customer of the brand and that maybe that person changes in their life and they move to somewhere where they now could use a tool watch and they're familiar with the brand and they get into it, right? Car companies have SUVs and trucks, but they also have sedans. They also have sports cars because not everyone is looking for the exact same thing. So I think it's very smart for Sinn to do it. Once again, excited to see where this brand takes their product catalog in the year 2023. Next, we have the Seiko 5 Sport Rowing Blazers collaboration with the colorful dials, a recent release. I have one of these in my collection. I have a few friends that have these. I think they're cool. Now, this watch is an affordable watch for most standards in the luxury watch realm. We're talking about $500 US, which could still be up there, depending on how you look at the watch. But the way that I like to look at it is this is kind of a foray or an entryway into a conversation where people that are in different segments of the watch collecting space, whether it's an A. Zona collector or Patek collector, an Omega collector, a Longines, or even a Swatch collector or a Seiko collector, you could really get into something here that allows you to join in the conversation that was really otherwise very segmented, right? It's, the people that want to talk about watches sometimes have a very certain range or style or type of watch that they gravitate towards. Maybe it's precious metal, maybe it's flashy, maybe it's tool watches. And I think this was an overlap of a couple different types of watches: affordability, collaboration, luxury, colorful, yet sporty. And it had a lot of popularity. You had a lot of people that really liked joining in on the conversation. Now, the Rowing Blazers brand might not be for everyone, but certainly what is for everyone is the ability to talk about watches, because at the end of the day, we all like watches, except for the negative people that leave weird comments below that troll. I don't know if they actually like watches. Probably not if they're so negative about it. I digress, but nonetheless, I like to see watches like this because it gets people into watches. Not only am I a watch dealer, I'm a watch collector. I'm a watch geek. I like to talk with other people about watches, so it's fun to see new people join the hobby every day. And lastly, this is a watch that I was kind of hoping Omega would come back out with because it's been a cult classic. One of the first watches that I really had in my collection a long time ago and really liked, enjoyed, and admired. This is going to be a modern interpretation of the Omega Seamaster Bond. This is the Omega Seamaster Diver 300M, 60 years of Bond to commemorate the 60 years of none other than James Bond. What I love about this, particularly the best thing about this, is the bezel. The bezel has an aluminum insert. Most watch bezels today, including from Omega, have a ceramic or some type of ceramic type insert. Aluminum's kind of outdated because it can kind of scratch and things like that. So Omega really wanted to pay tribute to the original Bond Seamaster that's become a cult classic. We sell so many of them at Del Rey Watch because so many people love them. They're awesome watches. Timeless piece of watch collecting history where they didn't have 1,000 micro brands producing dive watches. You had a Sub, you had a Seamaster, a couple others, but that was pretty much what you had. So I like to see this. It has that blue wave dial, back to the more frequent example of the waves, whereas the most recent edition from their ceramic bezel lineup has, a more spread out wave pattern on the dial. So this is just so true to the classic. Obviously a different size, different components, coaxial movement, in addition to a display case back with some animation on it and some other things that are different and modernized and to make it a little bit more commemorative and special. But I think this exemplifies that Omega is so committed to giving us as watch collectors kind of what we want. I think that Omega gets it. And that's why I wear an Omega a lot of times. I wear my Omega Seamaster Aquaterra because I think they do a great job. I think they pay attention. And I think they do a good job at juggling the collectors and the casual buyers. And not all brands can say the same today. So everyone, what do you think? This has been my list of the best watches from 2022. Once again, there have been so many amazing watches that have come out. But for the reasons mentioned, these are why I think these watches really deserve to be on anyone's top watch list for the year. But I would love to see and hear your opinions in the comments below, because once again, because of watches, we all have different things we like, different things we enjoy, and that's something we always try to take into consideration at Del Rey Watch as well for the different watches that we stock. So interesting perspective there. And guys, this is probably going to be the last video from me for the year 2022. Really want to focus on getting everything at the shop out for you there. We've had a lot of additional inquiries as well as requests, so really want to make sure we're handling and helping you all out there. So if I don't see you till the next year, please have a great new year. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, everything out there that you're doing through this season. Please enjoy that, and best wishes and greetings from me to you and your family as well. Guys, you can also find me on Instagram, The Real John P. I'm on TikTok as well, The Real John P. We'll see you real soon. You've been chatting with John P.